So Josh,
Yeah.
how do you feel about ghosts, spirits, even ghouls, specters, yokai, things of that nature? How do you feel about such phenomena?
I think that shit's bullshit, to be honest. Like, I think it's kind of just people, like, like, things that happen beyond their understanding that, they kind of just, throw into, like, this kind of, like, spiritual box, I guess. I hope that's not too controversial.
You think that there is never any connection between some form of spiritual realm and our own? You think
I don't
that,
think so, no. Not really.
every single thing could be explained by scientific phenomena and scientific phenomena only?
Yeah, I believe that there's also, only scientific stuff, right? Like, it's either, some kind of, like, physics or, aliens or something, just like science.
So we're gonna say ghosts and ghouls and goblins are not real, but it could be explained by aliens.
Aliens are real, okay? Those things are actually real. Like, you
Have
genuinely
you
think
met
that
an alien?
I haven't met an alien. You
Oh,
know?
I haven't met an alien. I met
But-
ghosts. I meet ghosts all the time. I see dead people.
What? You do?
Yeah, there's well, I mean, I grew up like near Savannah, and like that place. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
it's fairly accessible. People can get there, and it's like the most haunted city in America, and it is fucking haunted.
I don't believe that. Like, I went on one of those ghost tours and, the guy just kind of like walked us around and told us some stories and that was it. I didn't see jack shit. But
You've seen Alien. But oh no, you haven't even seen Aliens.
I haven't seen Aliens, but there was a time, my family used to have a bunch of farmland and we had some cows. One of the cows just disappeared one day. Like, he's just gone.
You experienced a cow mutilation, and you.
I mean, I didn't see it get
never
mutilated,
thought about it again?
but I did see it get like resurrected. I guess not resurrected, ascended. Like
You just saw a cow go. "Ooh."
yeah, that's real. That's real science.
And that's confirmed. Aliens could not be a ghost cow at all.
No, because ghosts don't have spirits. You dumbass.
Oh my fucking god, Josh.
Are we gonna get canceled for that?
Josh, there's one right behind you.
A ghost or a ghost cow?
Josh, look, turn around. It's a goblin. It's a little ghoul guy. It's right behind you. I promise. I swear he's gonna get you. Josh, turn around.
I don't believe you, man. You're full of
Josh,
bullshit.
he's gonna get you.
You're full of what the fuck? Ah!
Welcome to How-to Otaku.
God damn it! I haven't done a physical bit in a long while.
I kind of just dropped that on you. We were not really sure where that would go, and I was like, okay, it's time to pull the cord. We need to start the episode.
That's right. I'm Josh, and this is How-to
Brogan.
Otaku. The show where I am like a cow being brought into into the inside of a UFO. I'm being subjected
much
to
like an alien. I am abducting him and taking him into the anime unidentified flying object.
Exactly.
And we are going off into another universe where I will teach him the ways of the of Nippon Des.
It's actually an unidentified aerial phenomenon, actually. So.
Oh, that's right. They updated our terminology. We have to say UAPs now.
Yeah, you weren't taking notes, man? Come on. Amateur hour here.
There's been a lot of shit going on lately, and so the difference between a UFO and a UAP has been really not that important in my day-to-day life.
Well, it should be, because today it would have been important to know that sort of stuff, because today we're talking about I don't even know how to describe this. It's like every genre, but
the
definitely
breakout
science fiction.
hit sci-fi fantasy action comedy love story. Fucking
That sometimes
everything.
makes you cry.
Everything you could possibly want, it's in this show. Listen, I'm gonna put the cart before the horse here a little bit. Watch fucking DanDaDan. Go watch DanDaDan. Go watch DanDaDan, and then go read DanDaDan, because there's only 12 episodes, and even though the rest of the season is coming out this year. You remember when we were talking about Delicious in Dungeon?
I was gonna bring that up, and we were like, this kind of gets off in the core. Point.
The split in the core is so much. I'm like, because she's like, at the. We'll get there, but like,
damn. But yeah, it's this show is. I'm not gonna say the B word, but it's strange. It's unusual, uncommon.
The B word. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
But yeah, DanDaDan. So I remember like kind of hearing about this when when it started to like drop. You know, I wasn't very familiar with it beforehand, but like there was a level of attention that the internet was giving it at a point, and I was like, okay, I'll start giving this a shot. And then 1 or 2 episodes in, I was like, we gotta talk about this, because it's.
I have been on the DanDaDan hype train for so long. People have been looking at me like I'm a psychopath for about as long as I've been on the DanDaDan hype train. I'm a poser. I'll say it right now. I'm a poser because I only read like 6 or 7 chapters, and then I was just like, I need to watch this get animated. I need to stop. I need to go no further, and I need to watch this get animated. And now I'm at the point where there's nothing else to watch until June, and I'm just going to read the whole thing now.
Well, the good news is that we have our June planned out for us.
Yeah, we know what we're doing in June.
Yeah. But this show is, I mean, I don't even know how to start with it, but like I think that there's like a small level of controversy to it, but beyond that, it's been extremely well received, right? Like
this show is very indulgent in like what people call cheesecake shots, you know? But like at the same time, I feel like it has a purpose for it. Like it is about a young pubescent relationship, and so those themes, I mean, everybody who has been through high school or is in high school currently, why are you listening to this podcast? Go study. People experience these things, especially when they frame it from like, okay, weird, dejected, loner kind of guy. Like they are reaching for an audience here that, like, I think, I don't know. The audience is broader than just like guys who think that they are all alone in the world, because that is who Okarun is 100%. But it is not like a self-insert, like I want to be that guy kind of thing, because like it's just about these people learning how to express their thoughts and emotions to one another healthily, while also fighting aliens and ghosts and everything in between.
Yeah, like the way I would describe this show without getting into the more supernatural elements is that it's like it's a bunch of like very outsized, frustrated, you know, insecure people like yelling at each other until they figure out how to get along.
Exactly.
Like,
it is every single kind of neurotic kind of like anything that could possibly go wrong in a relationship, any misunderstanding that could be had, and just like realistically not the best people to be dealing with those kinds of things, teenagers. And it's like they set up tension in those scenes so fucking well, because they just play the tropes and play the tropes and play the tropes, and it's like, and you just watch these train wrecks happen in front of you, and then at the end of the day everybody just like reconciles and they hug it out and they're like, But I will say, where we are right now at the end of this, a second plane has hit the towers. So we've got a whole batch of new problems we're just about to get into. The next season.
Yeah, they ended the show at like the first mean, where like the second or third chapter of an arc would have started or would have been.
Right.
So like you're really like being left into the thick of it, and it's I really do wish that was like the one thing that they like slightly altered, is just like find a way to like end it at a better point, you know. But that's just like,
Sure.
you know, that's like regular television brain. That's like, okay, all the seasons are being crafted intentionally, and they're all gonna have like, you know, very nice little bow ties put onto the stories, and maybe there's like a tiny little thing set up for the next thing, but like you're gonna feel good at the end of the season. And this is
Right.
like, no, we're doing like 12, we're doing 12 episodes worth of the manga. We're adapting all of that shit, and if it ends at a weird point, it ends at a weird point. What are you
We're
gonna
not
do?
fucking with the pacing. You'll catch up when we start making episodes again. And it's like,
Yeah.
in a way, I definitely respect that. I completely understand it. And I think in the long run, it'll make for a better viewing experience of the show on rewatch. It is very difficult as a fan of any show that splits cores like this,
Yeah.
where it's just like, the season's not over, but they're taking a break, and you know, good, they need to take a break because we've discussed the problems in the manga and anime industry with overworking employees.
Yeah.
However, I want more DanDaDan.
Yeah, and like this show is like, while the manga was a success, I don't think that this show was like a guaranteed hit, right?
No,
like, it's still
absolutely
very,
not. So
it's still very weird and still very like difficult, especially for an international audience to get on board with. And I think it was a
Sure.
bit of a ways out there, you know?
I think so. I think in a lot of ways, yes. I think the DanDaDan manga was definitely more in a niche. Like you wouldn't see your trash tastes or your mother's basements really talking about it very much. But like, you know, I saw a couple people like, this manga's crazy, this manga's crazy.
Yeah.
But like, very much like not broad discourse, very much like a couple people are kind of trying to bring attention to it, and it's got some success, obviously enough success to get adapted.
Yeah, it's like
But
one of the ones your actually cool friend would be like, "Hey, you should check this out." Or your extremely weird pervy friend would be like, "Oh, I just picked this up and it's got little girl titties in it." Ah.
Yeah, so there are you know, there are reasons that the wrong kind of people might really like this show. Be careful who you listen to. You
Yeah.
know, just like in general, like if there's somebody whose opinions start sounding weirder and weirder to you, I wouldn't necessarily say just distance yourself off of that, but like try to find some understanding there. First of all, just like personal advice that from me to you, you know. But beyond that,
Yeah, and
DanDaDan's fucking great.
And
DanDaDan, the cinematography,
Oh, yeah.
the shot composition, the color palettes that they use, the fucking everything is so just dialed up. It is 11 all of the time.
yep, and that's Science Saru's kind of like trademark, right? It's just like this, like a hyperkineticism, but also a great attention to detail, right? And like,
Exactly.
you know, they're not beyond their cost cutting, right? You know, especially in like one of the later episodes, I noticed some moments where you know, they were basically having dialogue play over like static images, and I was like, okay, I see it, but like, I'm okay with that when they actually take the time and effort into putting, you know, into like making the real impactful moments work, you know.
Sure, and they
that's-
are. I would say that they're good enough at the stylistic parts of their production at this point that I never even caught that. I was so invested in like what was happening and like the characters and the action surrounding
Yeah.
it that like. And those parts, the action is so and even not when I say action, I'm not even talking about like fight scenes necessarily. Like people are so expressive. The way that people move their
my
bodies
God.
through the environments, it is so elevated. It is so Science Saru. It is so perfect for an adaptation of DanDaDan. That
Yeah.
like even in the moments where they kind of like pare it down a little bit, they're always trying to fuck with it in just enough of a way that it's like it doesn't come across as stilted or budget saving or like it's just like that's just DanDaDan, man.
Yeah, like I think Ayase in particular just has like a lot of her personality comes through the way she moves, right? The way she kind of like, slinks around in the hallway, when she's frustrated, or, or like the way that she just like, slams her head down on the table when she's after she's just had some big fight and she's, just trying to get over it, Like it's all just so it's so particular and specific that it elevates the show beyond the kind of the tropes that it's already like, really playing into, I think that that's kind of the important thing when you're talking about this sort of stuff, and I think it's what a lot of writers, think that they either avoid tropes to their detriment without realizing that like tropes can be helpful in certain instances, or they just do the trope straight on and like don't put the extra effort into the details that make it work,
Right. And that is I think that's one of the real differences between something that is excellent and something that is passable. Because like tropes, like you said, tropes exist for a reason. You have seen a beach episode a billion times because it's a formula. I mean, it's almost like math, right? Like, it's a formula. And so, if you are creative enough, you can use that formula. I mean, especially because it's art. It's subjective. It is always going to have rules, but those rules are in place so that you can break them with artistic intent. The same thing goes for storytelling tropes. The same thing goes for scenario tropes. You can put characters in a recognizable scenario. Oh, I've seen this a million times. But like, what is important is the character interactions, like how the characters show you who they are and how they interact with the world around them through those tropes. Because if you recognize a scenario, that gives the character a way to basically directly compare themselves to any other person that you've ever seen in that scenario and show you how they handle it differently, what makes them unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like this show is good. Got a cat right here.
El gato.
Gato. She's sweet. I didn't realize she was in here. But yeah, we'll get to Gigi in a bit, I guess. Gigi's the name of my cat and the name of a character in the show. But
I think we should roll around for a minute back to kind of the impetus for what is going on in this show.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's fucking insane. So, it like we said earlier, it is very much a mash of, like, several things. It's very much like Boy Meets Girl. But from my viewing of it, I feel more that, like, obviously, Ayase and Ken Takakura are like deuterogonists in this story, but it feels generally more focused on Momo. From what I can understand, so like when I say boy meets girl, it's really more like girl meets boy kind of thing.
Yeah.
From the framing that I've seen, I like that. I like that it's just like you get enough time with both of the characters, but it flips it just a little bit so that like you get more of both perspectives, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Momo has the benefit of being like she's the character who has like a family member who's also involved, and like their house kind of acts as like a base of operations, so like it's a little bit more centered on her in that sense. But yeah, like I don't know, like I personally think that's a little bit more equalized, as far as like the emotional framing of it, where like you are seeing both of their insecurities and their personalities kind of like bouncing around each other in these unique ways. And I think that it's it's definitely like a two protagonist kind of model. But to get into like the actual like the premise of the show, so let me try to remember exactly how it happens. So, I Momo Ayase is I forget what the name of this is. She's called a gyaru, which is like a kind of like a subculture in Japan that's that's like I don't know like a more feminine version of like a not a punk but like somebody who's less straight. He's straight, straight edged and
It's a similar kind of like, not necessarily direct similar aesthetic, but it is a similar impetus, if that makes sense. So like
yeah.
I say this sometimes, and I don't know how aware you are, and personally I am like very surface level aware of general Japanese culture things. But they have a saying, the nail that sticks out is the one that gets hammered in first, right?
Yeah.
And so there's an expectation of uniformity throughout most of culture, especially in school and in work in Japan. And when you're a teenager, you are very much like, fuck that shit. So with punks, you see, I guess the most direct punk aesthetic when we're talking about like Japanese culture we've seen is probably Jotaro Kujo.
Yeah.
Like very much just like anything you can do to break the dress code while still technically being in dress code. That kind of just like cold demeanor towards other people, very done up hairstyle. Like Josuke has a very punk kid hairstyle. JoJo's reference, whatever.
Yeah.
Gyaru is like the feminine kind of other side to that coin, where it is very
Yeah.
much like in the like pursuit of self-expression, they just like break the mold a little bit. They wear their uniforms in kind of ostentatious ways. They wear like, when I say interesting, I mean kind of like fully beat, almost like play actor makeup styles. One of her friends we see is very much like into that spectrum of gyaru culture. But it is very much just like everyone is wearing a school uniform. How can I stand out a little bit? That is a very just like baseline read of that kind of cultural phenomenon. But yes.
Yeah, but like, so as I was saying, she has this boyfriend who she breaks up with, and she kind of has like this kind of like ennui frustration afterwards, and on her way back to class, she sees this dirty little pushover kid in class just getting like mildly teased by these kids. They're like throwing they're throwing trash at him, and she decides to kind of go in there and sit next to him in order to like make them feel shitty enough about it that they stop. And I don't know, it's just this little moment that's like, she kind of has like this kind of like punk ass attitude, but she still harnesses it in like a way that cares about somebody,
Right.
Even
like,
this person she doesn't know.
We are shown very early on that she in particular kind of has a prickly exterior, kind of like a standoffish demeanor towards just generally everybody, but she's got a soft heart and she wants to look out for people, and she wants to be a good person.
Yeah, but then when this happens, or while this is happening, she kind of like feigns to take interest in the stuff that this kid Ken is reading, and then she gets up and leaves, and then he kind of like he kind of gets like a weird signal about it, so he's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go talk to her and be like, hey, are you interested in this stuff too? Because he is like super duper into aliens, and
super duper. Like he is in class ignoring lectures, reading magazines about like weekly publication, like I gotta go to the corner store and get my new copy of UAP Weekly or whatever, so like this is his whole shtick. This is everything to him.
Yeah, so he's confused, and he goes up to her and asks her if she's interested in it too. And of course, she being bit of a hard ass, she's like, no, I'm not into that at all. And like, they start having this like I guess this harsh dialogue back and forth with each other,
bickering, just arguing.
And then in the process, she admits that she believes in ghosts, and so they're both like, you're fucking stupid. No, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah, the fucking aliens aren't real. Fuck you. No, ghosts aren't real. Fuck you.
Yep. And then this ends up
I'll prove it.
Yep, culminating in a dare where Ayase has to go to this building where there's been a bunch of like UAP sightings, and Ken has to go to this this haunted tunnel, and they're both basically on call with each other. It's like whoever gets scared shitless the most has to be the other's lackey or whatever. I forget the exact whatever, but
I think they might say gopher or something like that.
Yeah, gopher. I'm not sure exactly what what that term is meant to imply, but it doesn't
just
matter
like
much.
running errands. It's like, just think like office intern, like, help me finish my homework, or like turn in these papers, or bring me a cup of juice whenever I want it. Like.
Yep. The alternate ending of this show where where one of them gets too scared to even go in, and then it's just like, all right, now you gotta do my homework. The end. Nobody gets hurt. But what ends up happening is that Ken gets assaulted by a ghost, and Momo gets abducted by aliens. And
yep, they're both right.
They're both right. Aliens are real and ghosts are real.
Yep.
Which like I love fiction that supposes that like two different things are true at the same time and just kind of like mashes them together,
Right, like you get like future fantasy stuff where it is a very explicit blending of two really well established genres, and then you just like you play with it from there. I mean, like the 40K aesthetic, which is all like Crusaders and Templars and Knights and shit, but it is 40,000 years into the future and everything is war. Like, it's a cool aesthetic. Say what you will about the people who heavily engage with Warhammer.
And look, there's two sides. There's two sides to the Warhammer community. There's the homophobes, and then there's the gays, and there's nothing in between.
There really is. Guys who think Ultramarines have never done anything wrong, and guys who just like orcs. Guys is a gender neutral term.
Yep, fellas. But
so yeah, they're both right. Okarun, which is what Momo has decided to call Ken, because Ken Takakura is the name of an actual Japanese actor who she has a crush on. And she's like, I cannot call you that because several reasons, most of which being I'm a teenager and I will develop a crush on you very easily if I relate you to the biggest actor crush that I have in my head.
Like not just like an actor. He's won basically like the Japanese equivalent of the acting Oscar 4 times. So
right. He is like,
he's a very big deal.
He's a very prominent actor. He's not just a Japanese. He's like the guy.
Yeah, imagine if like the American adaptation was just like, oh, what's your name? Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, or who are you? I'm George Clooney.
I'm Humphrey Bogart.
Not that one. Yeah, exactly. So.
But like, so this kind of gets into one of the main criticisms of this show, I guess, which is just like so when Ayase gets abducted by aliens, they strip her and like strap her up, and it's
right. Like it's pretty
upsetting.
Well like exactly what you expect from an alien abduction, but like in what has so far been a very like meet cute kind of like
lighthearted
girl, lighthearted, jokey kind of comedy show. Like when you're like, oh, the aliens are gonna strap you down and cut you open and steal your bits and experiment on you, and they like fully go for it. But then they also like still play with it. Like the aliens are goofy and stupid, and they're like, oh, we are going to take your where is your banana? Like they're like very focused on the reproductive organs of humans, which is just like. It's one of those things that I feel like was implemented to kind of just like pull the thematic tension of like a very young relationship and like discovering what sexuality is and discovering like how to be in a relation, like as one of those kind of thematic things. However,
it puts the characters into a lot of uncomfortable situations that feel tonally dissonant from the rest of the show, I think. Like, it does. You know, and again, to its credit, I don't think it's like too leering or too willing to overindulge itself, right?
I don't really necessarily get the sense from it that it is doing it as self-indulgence necessarily. I think more I get the feeling that like, not that these characters are comfortable in these situations, if that makes sense, but certainly like not. I do not get the sense that it is specifically there for the audience to look at girl in underwear, you know?
Yeah,
like there are it feels weird defending it, you know.
The sequence at the 2/3 point where they all kind of strip down to defeat the monster at the end, that feels the most indulgent this show is ever, really. Like,
sure, that it feels like kind of why. And they explain it as like, oh, well, I mean, in that big ass sweater, you're not gonna be able to move through the water very easily. Like, sure.
But also, if you had not said a goddamn thing, I wouldn't think about it.
Right.
I wouldn't be like, how are they moving through the water this fast with that sweater on?
Well, it is so obviously. But again, it doesn't even seem necessarily out of self-indulgence because they use that to set up this kind of conflict between Ira, Momo, and Ken, where they are, you know, they're all butting heads this whole time because they kind of get into this love triangle where Ira is like, oh my god, she's a demon and she's trying to like capture and fuck with people and like make a demon army. She's crazy. But she seems to have kind of ulterior motives as well. She's weird. But it creates this kind of faux love triangle between Ken, Ira, and Momo, where Ira and Momo is obviously interested in Ken. Neither one of them have said a damn word about it yet. Yep. But Ira is just all over him because she's like, I gotta show him that things are better without a crazy demon lady. And he's just like, what crazy demon lady? So as part of that conflict, they use the kind of like, okay, well, they all stripped and they fought this Loch Ness monster, conglomerate, alien, fucked up demon thing. And then anime trope, they are plopped into a hallway, butt booty naked on top of each other. And everybody in the school is like, oh, they fucking in a hallway. Which is used to create more tension in that sphere just before we are introduced to the second plane, you know? Like, it is very cheesecakey, and there are some ways in which it does feel self-indulgent, but I feel like broadly it is the times where characters are disrobed. It is being like pointedly used to make connections to the thematic reasoning for the show. That being said, there are a lot of cheesecake shots, and you know, if that's like super weird for you, I completely get it. You know,
not just like
desensitized to it.
Yeah, not just like cheesecake shots, but like, you know, with the aliens in particular, it's very sexual assault coded in a lot of ways.
It is.
It
is, which is not great, and we've gotten to a point kind of where like okay, these things are scary and obviously threatening, but we are confident, especially by the point where they fight the Loch Ness monster.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, these guys got it. Like, it's gonna be tough and it's gonna be scary, but they got it. And so I think you have enough of a sense of that as a viewer, as an audience member, where it's like, we know it is like the aliens have horrible intentions, but we know that the main characters are going to not have that happen. Like,
Yeah.
it
Like,
is still weird. It is still weird. I'm not detracting from that at all.
yeah, no, like I do think it's worth pointing out, especially if we're recommending this, that it's like, you know, if that sort of thing is a bit
If
of a
it's
trigger
touchy.
for you, yeah,
Right.
don't, just know that
Just-
going in, or like,
Just know going in, exactly.
yeah. I do think that some of this could be mitigated if they had just like non-phallicized the aliens and the method with which they're going to extract her banana, you know? Like,
Right.
because
that definitely makes it feel worse with like the weird alien robot wiener.
yeah, because I will say this in particular, like, there's a very specific parallel to Okarun, who the ghost in that he gets taken by in the tunnel. That ghost literally takes his genitals. Like, it's like, in a sense, it is a way more literal sexual assault, right? Than anything
like,
that ISA, experiences. But
and it is very goofy, and I will say for the most part, like, even when ISA is in like a compromising position, it seems like anyone and everyone is literally just worried about Okarun's dick and balls, like that's
Yeah.
all they want. They want the banana. So it's like, even when she is, I don't, it's weird because it's like she is not constantly, but she is fairly frequently in pretty compromising positions. But Okarun is also in equally, if not more so, compromising positions. And it is very much on his end, just kind of breezed over, very much played for jokes, more so. Which, like, obviously the show is not trying to take this stuff like overly seriously in the first place.
no, certainly not.
And it is trying to be funny and silly about it.
Yeah.
But it from Western eyes, it is kind of like, if you flip those roles, things are kind of like things are
really
already
weird.
kind of weird.
And,
Things
like,
are really weird then.
But the point I was trying to make is that, like, when it happens to Okarun, it doesn't feel so impactful, partly because they do play it a lot for laughs, more so than the alien abduction stuff. But the other thing about it is that, like, you don't get the equivalent of that phallic image, right? That is so like distinctly off-putting,
Right.
Like, when his balls are taken, you don't see that happen. It's there's no image, there's no like insinuation or really of it. It's just
it happens.
It's just a thing that
screen
happens
while
Yep.
Momo is strapped to an alien chair.
So it feels less drastic, I guess, or less like. And again, like, it's part of like the push and pull of it. It's like, how much do we want to take this seriously? How much are we just kind of like trying to breeze past it because it's part of the premise? But like, and which one is better? But like,
Right, and it's like, obviously, like, we are not saying this as like a detraction from the show. I think a lot of how they handle things, all in all, like, when you watch it, those weird feelings are there to make you feel weird. Like, it is not like, this is not a thing that I am saying to say, oh, this is a bad show, this is a bad depiction, this is like this, that, and the third, like, you shouldn't watch this. Not at all. I love this show, and it's not even despite this. I think that in the grand canon of anime in general, this is fairly tasteful, I would say. Tasteful is weird. wording to come out of my mouth when talking about these kind of topics, but I like, again, we are definitely taking it more seriously than the people who put it to page.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that. Like, I think that when you talk about serious topics, you need to be able to take a step back and like seriously consider a serious topic. But by and large, this show is just like it is non-problematic. It is like it is, these depictions are used intentionally to make you get bad feelings about the aliens.
Yeah.
And it is
like,
done in a very like anime way, air quotes.
Yeah. I mean, especially in particular, like when they attempt to like arouse her, you know, it doesn't frame it in such a way that like that insinuates that she's getting any pleasure out of it, or that like particularly objectifies her. It uses this kind of like warp effect that feels very uncomfortable to you, and it just like doesn't, like I said, it doesn't feel like it's trying to get you off, you know. It feels like just like putting you in her subjective experience for a moment right before Okarun magically shows up.
He flies through the telephone, yeah.
Yeah, with the ghost of this with this old woman that they later named Turbo Granny, which is a great name.
Turbo Granny. Voiced in the Japanese dub by the voice actor for Luffy One Piece, by the way.
Wow, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
Range. But now that she has like a physical form, she can manifest it. Like Okarun intends to like protect her, but then he's also like gotten this power from her. So like he attempts to save her. He doesn't do very well, you know.
Right.
He gets his ass handed to them, and then, you know, Ayase, who we forgot to mention, she believes in ghosts because her grandma is a medium, and so like she kind of like has all this like, you know, spiritualist stuff brought into her, and has like complicated feelings about it. But
and Granny Seiko, just a little side tangent. Granny Seiko. That's all I have.
But so she realizes that she can like, I guess in this moment of desperation, she unlocks her chakra and, you know, is able to you know, go avatar state or whatever, and
yeah, she finds her connection to the spiritual medium and becomes one with her psychic power.
Yep.
And I will say, I like so far how this has developed, and especially how they kind of depict her understanding of her psychic power, because it has all so far been very like, think of it as hands. Think of it as I am using my hands to grab something, to hold something, to pull something, to push something. Different ways that I could manifest physical force outward.
Yep.
Just very, that's a very minor thing so far. I feel like that may develop later, but I really do love how they are like stepping kind of into her mind when she figures out something new, and it's like, okay, how does this work? How am I doing this? How do I make what I need to happen actually happen?
Yep. And whenever she starts thinking about things like that, you get like the subjective experience of her, and it's like this, you know, you see like a wireframe of the real world, and it's like, this is the sort of stylistic stuff, these little touches that Science Sorrow just does so well. It's like just thinking a little bit outside the box in order to visualize something in a really cool way.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, the two of them together are able to defeat the aliens. The UFO crashes down, and, you know,
and they escape entirely unscathed. Yes,
basically.
So, but from here on out, something horrible happens. They managed to separate Okarun from Turbo Granny, but Turbo Granny stole his dick and balls. They're gone. gone. Bro's shaped like a Ken doll down there. And so
Well, they
up
haven't
until where we are.
just to correct you, they
Yeah,
haven't entirely separated her yet because she needs to like basically like hold on to and like squeeze Turbo Granny inside of him just to like keep her from getting too crazy.
There's like a whole nother arc that happens after they get off the spaceship where it's like a race against Turbo Granny through town and they have to fight her and they get on a train. Like
Oh
it
yeah.
is just it is so it's so good just all the time. The train fight and the way that they kind of start to introduce the more like actual Japanese spiritualism stuff with like yokai and binding papers and things like that, and they start to really effectively blend these two kind of like what they frame as diametrically opposed concepts, but then they just bleed the world together in such a just like no-brainer way that it's just like you're in it.
Yep. Like they have, like you said, they have the warning paper on the outside the house early on to like keep spirits out. But they take it down so that Okarun with Turbo Granny's spirit inside of her can go inside. But then they forget to put it back up, and it lets not a spirit but an alien in.
Yep. and this is the other thing that I think is so fucking dope about this show is the depictions of yokai, the depictions of aliens, and like how they are playing with very set in stone, very kind of like canonized things throughout these two different pillars of science fiction. Like gray men. The gray men in this show are like the first guys that we get introduced to. And if people are like alien guys, then they're like, oh, gray men, that's like the alien that everybody. So, but like, they've got these weird stripe patterns to them, and they're these weird oblong, blocky bodies, and they move weirdly, and they've got kind of like stalk eyes off to the sides of their head. They are very different. And they do it again with the oh god, it's like super famous. They call it out by name in the show, but it, like another one of these kind of like canonized
are you talking about the sumo
alien
guy?
designs. Yeah, the sumo guy, the hayfield monster or something like that.
Yeah, like, and then later on we get Ira's mom has more of like a traditional like the ghost spirit that you would expect, with like the really long hair and stuff, like just like what I know about more Japanese ghost mythology, right?
Well, Flatwood monster is what I was trying to say, and you're right. And the two worlds of design are both very distinct, but they are also like taking those designs, those like canonized concepts, the things that like I recognize this, and they are playing with it just enough that it's like. Almost becomes its entirely own thing. Like the Flatwood design, the Flatwood monster being a just hulking behemoth sumo wrestler guy. Crazy. They
really
come back
good
around
CG
later and like
really good integration.
The businessman alien who's like a crab guy with like a and then he evolves into like a bullet mantis shrimp and
the shrimp guy.
and they talk again about how like that sounds like a kappa. That sounds like a kappa. That sounds like this like super well canonized Japanese yokai. They live under bridges. They're little turtle guys. They do this that and the other. Like when Granny Seiko hears about this, she's like, that's a capo. And Okarun is like, actually, there are a lot of theories that say that kappa are actually aliens. So like this makes perfect sense to me. She's like, what? Why is it an alien? That doesn't make any sense. He's a kappa. Obviously he's a kappa. And so it just plays with so many of these concepts in interesting ways where they start to bleed into one another, and it's so well conceptualized.
Yeah, you know more about that stuff than I do, but I do really love like all the creature designs in this, and I do love the integration of aliens and ghost mythical creatures together. And oh my god, we didn't. I love Godzilla Nessie.
Oh yeah, like a very, and I'm like, huh, what, Scotland?
Yeah.
Just very much Nipponized, fucking like. What is, if this monster existed and it was here, we would put it in the canon of fucking Godzilla, and
Yep.
it is very much like charge the fucking nuclear laser, like breathe in, vent ports out of the fucking, like very, exactly. They take so many of these established concepts and they fuck with them just enough that it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, like, it's so good. And I love Okarun's kind of like alternate form as well, just kind of like along those levels where it's like, he takes on like an entirely different, like, colder personality, and like I love like the teeth mask and all that shit. It's subtle, and you can still see Okarun a little bit in there, but you
can tell he is like distinctly changed.
Yeah, and on that note, did you watch the dub or the sub? I'm curious.
I watched the sub.
Okay, that's fine, but the actor for Okarun in the dub, let me pull up his name, AJ Beckles, fantastic job on this. This guy did. Like, he, as far as I've found, like, career, voice actors done, like, tons and tons and tons of shit, but, like,
Sure.
It's impressive to me that he managed to take this character that's, like, could be super annoying and cloying and needy, and, like, actually, like, breathes a depth into him,
Right, exactly. Like, and the sub does this very well also. I mean, like, he's kind of whiny in some instances, and, like, he is supposed to be, I believe. I feel like that is just a depiction of him as a character.
Yeah, definitely very, like, never, stock nerd.
Right, it's never grating, though. It is like, it is all so well characterized as, like, this is just who this guy is. If you were a fucking 17-year-old, 16-year-old in high school, and you were just a fucking nerd about aliens, and then all of a sudden all this shit started happening, you'd probably whine about it a little bit too. So, like, give the guy a break.
Yeah, like, oh my god, this show. But let's talk about Psycho for a bit, because you did briefly mention her. She's the one who essentially assists them in figuring this out and like, connecting them more like to the history of yokai, and helps them figure out how to get Turbo Granny out of Okarun's system, right? And so, but when we first meet her, she's like this kind of like washed up TV medium who is like clearly getting shit wrong on TV, like, even though they later cut to it and it's like, oh, this celebrity who she was interviewing earlier, he was lying about all that stuff, and all the stuff she said was true.
Right, like, it literally she goes on TV, she does spirit medium shit, they're like, see, this is bullshit, she got it all wrong, and then like 4 hours later she's back at home just kicked back at the TV, and her granddaughter comes home from high school with some new loser, and she's just watching the TV as they on live news confirm every single thing she said.
Yeah, and
so
like
it is showing, like, oh man, it's so good because it is so quickly characterizing who this person is. Like, super powerful, super well knowledgeable, super in touch with her shit as a spirit medium. Like, we're kind of set up initially like, it's kind of bullshit, and then we're like very quickly shown, oh, actually she's the real deal. But also, fuck all this noise. I got a nice house. I got TV. I got all the food I could ever need. I got a granddaughter who knows what she's doing now. So fuck it. Like, what am I doing, man?
Yeah,
she's just hanging out.
Yep, and she cooks a lot, and apparently she cooks really well. There are several scenes where they're fighting over food. Several.
Oh man. Those meal scenes, phenomenal. It's so cute. It's so cute. The whole I'm running out of words to say, and I'm just like having emphatic guttural responses.
So, on Science Saru, I talked a little bit about the DanDaDan episode about how like the Science Saru's approach is a little bit more cinematic than most television
this is the DanDaDan episode in the
I was saying in the Devilman Crybaby episode. Did I say
yeah.
Yeah. So in that episode I was kind of talking about how like Science Saru like they tend to like take more time to let you like breathe into an atmosphere, and like, and that kind of stuff is like, even in a really like fast-paced energetic story, that stuff is the stuff that like makes you feel like you're in a really breathed in world, where things like do kind of slow down and you see like more ordinary stuff. And this and these meal scenes really help with that, where like every time they get some big accomplishment done, they defeat some yokai or some alien or something, they go back to eat. It's like in metaphor, like every time you get something big done, you want to have like that moment to like rest back and be like, okay, I did that, I accomplished that, I feel good about myself, and you need that for these characters too.
Even more on just to punch in on the metaphor thing for a second, just like in the middle of a fucking dungeon and you find one room where there's a lower Magla presence, and so you have a minute to just collect your thoughts and talk to your party members, and like this is what that does. This kind of like recenters you, resets you. Like even sometimes they'll have you gotta eat, so they just like have dinner in the middle of like whatever the fuck is going on and just kind of talk about it and try and figure that shit out.
Yeah. And like, okay, so they do eventually go back to the tunnel. They challenge Turbo Granny to a game of tag because they're like, okay, she's full of herself, she's in her own head, and she'll never turn down a challenge. If you can't beat her when you're just playing by like the rules of the engagement of battle, but if you turn it into a competition where there are rules, then you stand a chance. Right. And she ends up breaking those rules too. She does not give a shit.
No, she's gonna win. But yeah, I like they fight Turbo Granny. They fucking blast her to hell with archway of talismans that they have set up so that when she passes through it, she's fucking obliterated. And then she possesses this like lucky China cat doll thing that just shows up at their house. There are so many. Oh man, and then she's just a character. She's just like part of the family. She's at the house.
Yep.
And she's just like,
she has
so
like the
weird to see how directly her personality just correlates to a cat. Like, it doesn't seem to me that she has changed into a cat, as like she's just was always a fucking cat, and now she's in the body that suits her most.
Yeah, I was going to compare her to Iggy in Part 3, but but when you said she's so like a cat, I had this thought, and I was like, Iggy should have been a cat. That would have made so much more sense for his character, because dogs are loyal and cats are not so much. But
Iggy's got his own shit going on, man.
Yeah.
And by the end, Iggy is a really loyal little guy. And then...
Yeah.
Iggy. Ice. Never mind.
But yeah, like... It is funny how, like, you get introduced to these characters and you're like, oh, this person's going to be, like, a villain. And, like, some of them stay villains, but, like, Turbo Granny becomes kind of like an ally, and then, Ira, despite how much she fucking hates Isa, becomes kind of an ally through the middle portion. And then...
Right, she's kind of forced to just like cooperate and help, and it's like she's
and even the shrimp guy
weirdly, exactly. I mean, it's very much like I said. we've been covering a lot of these lately, where it's just like, at the end of the day, it's a show about like human connection, about like understanding people.
That's what all the good stuff is about.
I guess so. And we started talking about Ira. I think we can. I want to examine some of these characters more so than like step for step the plot line.
Yeah.
But like this is a great time to talk about Ira because she's introduced in the Silky arc, acrobatic Silky, and that is such a great core of this story so early on, where we are shown the status quo, we are shown the formula, like, okay, monster of the week, we're gonna fight the fucking yokai, we're gonna fight the fucking aliens, we're gonna find my dick and balls. And he is immediately punched up by like, oh, remember, this is a romance story, and we're gonna make problems for that too. So she just comes in as such a neurotic, kind of loose cannon. She is initially introduced as kind of just like the popular girl, very vain, very kind of distracted by her own importance.
Yeah.
And Momo's got beef with her, and then she starts seeing her throw eyes to Okarun, and she's like, can't have that, drop a bucket on her head. I don't know, man. But Ira, when introduced to the dynamic of Ayase and Okarun, who are already kind of like just like built for each other, but at the same time cannot avoid having the most complicated misunderstandings possible. But at the end of the day, they always figure it out. And so we are shown this fairly early on. But it's twisted when Ira starts actually taking an interest in Okarun, and we are like fully brought into a love triangle.
Yeah.
But it's more of like a love box with an open top, where Okarun, maybe even a you know, I mean that's still a triangle, but with no bottom. You know, it's like Ayase likes Okarun, Okarun likes Ayase, Ira likes Okarun, Okarun knows that Ira exists.
Yep, and then Ayase and Ira beef because of that. You know, like it's. And the other thing on top of that is like, so the reason why she's kind of like getting infatuated with Okarun is this like, so after her initial introduction, she kind of gets reintegrated into the plot because so it's revealed that she picked up one of Okarun's testicles, you know, which like
she found the golden ball just out on the street somewhere.
Yeah, which I guess by like rubbing it in her pocket or whatever, you know, rubbing balls. But by rubbing balls in your pocket, you can unlock like some level of like spirituality with it, and she ends up seeing like the Momo's like spirit hand in the real world. So then that basically like radicalizes her into this like, you know,
it's like, oh fuck, I'm the chosen one and I have to fight all the demons.
Yep, I am Constantine. I am Keanu Reeves. I can defeat the demons.
Just quickly, the other thing that's so funny to me is like how many characters, and it's like almost like an on-off switch. Like Ira has apparently never come across the concept in Japanese culture of a golden ball, because that is like universal shorthand for somebody's testicles. Just like in Japan, if somebody jokes or says anything about golden ball, like, he got kicked in the nuts or what, like, you know what they're talking about. And it's like so many of these characters see this like blatantly obvious visualization and representation for exactly what it is, and just it flies right over their head.
Yeah. When we get into DBZ.
Soon, actually.
DBZ, all about balls. I mean, maybe not. We'll talk about it, but
DBZ is about 30% about balls. But yeah, Oh man, we have that love triangle, right? And so
Oh yeah.
Ira
Like I
has
was.
her whole own. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, like I was saying with her, so like she believes that that Ira's a demon, right? Because she sees this hand,
That
and
Momo is,
she that Momo's a demon, and she doesn't really comprehend what it is, and then she sees that Okarun has a demon as well, and she's like, well, this really nice guy who I bumped into in the hallway once, he's got a demon in him? That's crazy. It must be this bitch, Momo, who put a demon inside of him, and if I love him enough, I can save him from the demon. And it's like, okay,
I can
you know,
fix him type shit.
Science Saru playing with more religious fanaticism and self-indulgence again.
So yes, you get this insanely neurotic character just kind of to start with, who's like, oh, I can sense spiritual energy. That must make me the chosen one.
Yep.
And
then she has to fight her mom.
right, she puts herself square in the middle of this fight between Okarun and Momo and Acrobatic Silky, who is another yokai, another ghost that we are introduced to. And
Yep.
goddamn, I fucking cried, dude. I'm like, the simultaneous blows of Ira hits the ground, like, obviously she's dead. Like, what the fuck were you guys thinking? She's just a normal person. There's no way she could have survived that. To Silky realizing, like, oh, fuck. That is my kid.
Yeah.
To her realizing, oh, fuck, that's my mom. And then just watch DanDaDan. You like watch this because it is one of the most heart-touching, beautiful scenes that I have seen in a recent anime production, probably in the last 5 years. You know.
Yeah, like it. So, my understanding was that the implication was that her mom was a sex worker, right? That's my understanding.
I believe so. Yeah.
Because, like, they don't visualize her doing any of the work, but like, she's in the bed, there's money left on the bedside table or whatever, like that's the implication, right? Is that she goes out and does sex work at night to make ends meet. By day she's a janitor, and then she spends whatever little other time she has with her kid, and and you see, and like, just like, we're getting to more of this point in American culture where, like, sex work isn't treated as like this degrading, not necessarily a degrading thing, just like a thing that, like, or at least not degrading for the individual person and like their self on like a moralistic standpoint. It's
right.
It's more.
I feel like most cultures kind of have that sense to them. Like, somebody who is in a position in their life who feels the need that they have to turn to sex work as a way to make ends meet. Mm-hmm. That person is not demonized. It is the person who is creating the market that makes people feel the need to go into sex work to make money.
Well, I'm saying because, like, in America, we live in a pretty puritanical culture where it's flipped the other way around,
Right,
and
exactly.
So,
right, and that's. I think we're on the same page here.
Yeah, so, like, I don't know. I guess I just find it interesting that, like, they treat it with such dignity and respect, and treat her with all that dignity and respect, while still acknowledging, like, the dangerous position that she's in,
Right. And so, and part of this is that, like, they are separated. Like, the daughter is kidnapped, and the mom, like, oh my god, I almost forgot this scene was in the show, but the fucking first person tracking shot.
Oh my god.
Falling over on the glass, and like she's just like, every single part of her body is just covered in shards of glass. She's bleeding, and her kid just got taken, and she sees her get thrown in the back of it, and she's just fucking sprint. Like, oh my god, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
can you tell that this guy used to work for Tatsuki Fujimoto? Because same type of shit, like, just kind of like a mixture of like the real, like, down to earth humanistic elements and then like these very, like, violent images,
right.
like same sort of stuff. You know, it's really good. You know, like I would say like so. I was thinking about this while I was binging the whole thing together. Is that like I feel like the show is better in certain cases when you give yourself some breaks in between episodes to to not have like the tones jar with each other because
Yeah,
like
I mean, I feel like most shows breathe better that way. I have always, I mean, in the exception of cases where it's like one episode leads directly into the next, I'll typically watch that as a block, but I like being able to kind of like week by week keep up with a show. I have ADHD. It's about the only way I can watch a show is if I get into it and then keep up with it. Because like people tell me all the time, go back and watch The Sopranos, and I get about 5 episodes in, and I'm like, I
get what The Sopranos is, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And then I just like I get distracted by some other dopamine trail, and I'm gone. But when it's like, okay, it's DanDaDan Thursday, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah. That's why we on the How to Otaku podcast advocate for the return of cable.
Seriously, man. I mean,
bring back cable subscriptions. Bring back that $250 a month for like 50 channels. You know, we're tell me what to watch and what time to watch it, and I will be there.
Exactly. We're paying.
I'm half joking.
$300 now for Netflix with ads. Hulu
we talked about
with
that.
Ads. You got to get the Paramount Plus. You got to get the Disney.
Paramount Plus with Showtime if you want to watch. You know.
don't forget that HBO Max. We got to throw the NFL Showtime ticket on there.
That's right.
Oh fuck, my Amazon Prime is due. I can't live without the Spotify, you know, like, and at this point we're just like, we're right back at the $300. We're still watching everything with ads. Nothing has changed. Give me cable back. I have a DVR recorder.
Yep.
I'll take a $90 cable package with 30 channels on it any day of the week. If I get to pick the channels.
Yeah, but what have we not talked about? I'm just looking at... Yeah, Gigi definitely. So, like, Gigi's a very late addition to the plot. You know,
the second plane.
Yeah, he arrives and, like, he is instantly, like, this character that, like... I really hope they do something in season 2 to pull me into him, but right now, I would not stand this dude. This is like the theater kid you avoid, you know.
I read like 6 chapters, so I have not yet read beyond this point. Like the anime is my only understanding of what has happened with Gigi specifically so far. I can see it. I see it right now. It's in my mind's eye. There's gonna be some like his parents aren't actually this, that, or the like. I don't know. There's gonna be some like tangible reason for him to kind of have this shield of being a fucked up little goober.
Yeah.
That being said, right now it is unbearable, especially when you're like, oh my god, Okarun and Ayase have to be in love forever.
Yeah.
And you are so like deeply grounded in Okarun's eyes of like, oh my fucking god, they giggled at each other. Oh, it's and, like, over, dude.
And every time they almost get you to hate him enough, they reinforce that, like, if Ayase wasn't in the picture at all, Okarun and this guy could have probably gotten along just fine.
Yeah, Okarun and Gigi, like, Gigi's interested in aliens. He teaches Okarun how to play soccer. And that's like the 2 episodes we've seen him in. This is more of a connection with any human being that Okarun has had other than with Momo ever.
Yeah, and they even have a scene where they, like, do a little dance with each other or something, right? And... and they just, like, gotta connect on this weird wavelength, I guess. But but like no, I would not fuck around with this dude. He has too much energy. He is
not invited to the rotation.
He is too. He makes the shitty ass dumb jokes that I would make, but then instead of me being like, that was stupid, I'm sorry, and then over apologizing for making a dumb joke, he triples down on the joke.
I mean, hey man, sometimes you gotta run the bit.
Nah, man, like, I was about to go on a political tangent. I can't do that. I'll get on that tangent after the episode's done. But yeah, just like, what is this now? It's like it's a love pyramid, I guess. Or like, there's like the three at the bottom and then the one at the top, and they're all like kind of like, going at each other in different ways. Like, we're into like the love three-dimensional objects now.
I've seen the chart now where people are like the DanDaDan subreddit or like whatever, or like X the everything app, Grok auto generate, But I've seen the chart where it's like, let's get one thing straight, and it's fucking Ira, Gigi, Okarun, and Momo, and it's got a line between Okarun and Momo that says, unconditional love, they are built for each other, nothing will change this. Yeah. And then it's Ira to Okarun, and it's like, deeply in love, aware of existence. And it's like, and then it's like, Gigi, still has a crush, and then the line back just says Gigi or something.
Yeah, but I mean, they get to this this house that supposedly has been haunted by a ghost, and to the point where Gigi's parents
Gigi's house,
are apparently hospitalized, and
it's his house, and they've had like
yeah.
They've had every kind of fucking exorcist you can possibly get to the house. He said they've had like 5 people there, and three of those people killed themselves. So whatever this is,
like,
it's serious. And I say whatever this is,
it's 3/5 as bad as The Exorcist.
God damn it! Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
hey, 3 out of 5, that's a better chance.
As anime viewers, we have hit the brick wall of the fucking the 12 episode core is over. So we are. I will say I'm more frustrated about how they left Momo in this core than I am about the cliffhanger with the secret room and the talismans, because like I said earlier, I am fully aware that like nothing that bad is going to actually happen, but like
putting yourself
putting
the character in that predicament and then treating it like a cliffhanger is
right. Like I would have been perfectly happy with like cliffhangering like weird people in the town, because like you start getting those shots pretty early on when they get there. It's just like they're not paying attention to the street shops and the restaurants and the bookstores or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, people are just looking at them, and they all look kind of like Innsmouth fish people, like fucked up weirdos. And so like they definitely could have just like let on that, but instead they cut off where Momo decides by herself she's just gonna go to the onsen, and then doesn't read the sign that says gender non-conforming onsen tub, this is where everyone goes,
co-ed,
and then a bunch of weirdo 40 to 50-year-old Japanese businessmen who call themselves crocodiles get in the pool and start threatening to assault her, and then end of the episode. Wait until June.
Yeah.
That is so far, like with what we've watched, that's probably the most tangible complaint, right?
Yeah, that's the most indefensible thing it does.
Now, will this be solved basically immediately when we start the next core?
Yes.
Almost assuredly.
But still, it doesn't feel good. I don't like lingering in that for 6 months, Mm-hmm.
Which is why basically,
and I have no experience with this.
I'm going to start reading the rest of DanDaDan.
Yeah, but that's kind of where they leave us off, and like, I feel like they could have just like, I don't know, cut it off a little bit sooner. You know, like pad out the episode a little bit more so that like it doesn't end on such a, you know, very sexually tense moment, icky moment. You know, just something like that. You know. Just throw me a little bit of a curveball and I can give this a nicer recommendation. But even then,
I'm fully aware we are only like realistically halfway through the season, you know.
But yeah,
and I, to Science Saru's credit, this is most likely just because this is best for whatever the pacing is. Yeah. Like, however their pacing format has been so far, it's just like how it is in the manga, and it just lines up for the end of episode 12. But it is... it's like, why is that the cliffhanger, man? Give me one more episode or something, you know?
Yeah, and I imagine this show's got to be expensive to produce just because of how labor intensive it is specifically. Like, I mean, no animation is particularly cheap, not any ethically produced animation anyways, but, you know, but the stuff they do with this show in particular is, you know, just wonderful A-tier stuff, you know, and S-tier stuff even, I would say.
More Science Saru tier stuff.
Yep, Science Saru tier. But I actually looked this up. It seems like this is Science Saru's first ongoing television show. Like,
yes, so everything they've done before now has been a film or a miniseries.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this in particular, getting a second season at all, like I said, this is also a bit of a niche thing, so it's like maybe they were going to do 12 episodes just to like test the waters, and then if that didn't get very far, you know, they probably wouldn't go they might not go any further, you know.
Right.
But having been as successful as it has, you know, they're now with the confidence to be like, okay, we can get this season out in another 7 or 8 months, you know. Or the rest of this season.
Which is fucking crazy that they're just like, yeah, man, run it. 2025.
I really hope that there's not like a fucking variety story in the next 6 months that's like, actually, Mamoru Hosoda is a fucking asshole. He fucking, he makes them work themselves to death or whatever, you know. No, Masaki Iwasa, my bad, not Mamoru Hosoda. Mamoru
Masaki Iwasa.
Yeah. You know, he beats his workers.
The guy that fought his life off to Keep Your Hands Off Isaacin to television is just like actually the biggest scumbag of all time. The Night is Short Walk On girl is actually just fucking horrible.
He puts the scintillating ass school nurse uniform on and just starts whipping people to work harder. That was crazy that they literally just had like 2 or 3 minutes of like, hello nurse there. And
yeah, directly after are these kids fucking in the hallway? And they just get sent to the school nurse. They give them like gym uniforms. And they're like, I didn't see nothing. Excuse me while I go berate this jackass that is coming in here.
I have to assume that that's a setup for something later, but I have no clue. Maybe that was just a thing they chose to do.
I am begging that she comes back. I will say,
begging.
Hey man, you know. I will say I'm looking at the Science Saru official website right now.
Yeah.
And the poster for DanDaDan season 2 has Gigi very prominently kind of in the middle background, and then right behind him is the face of the demon that we have seen 2 or 3 times that he is describing in his home. So you know, that may right, like I haven't read this yet, so I can't be like, oh, something's coming, but that indicates to me that like we are about to like actually start another major arc off the back of this.
Yeah, like it's So, like, my understanding is that this covers broadly, like, 3 arcs and then kind of, like, starts the next one. So, like, this will probably follow the same. It'll do, like, 2 or 3 arcs in total, you know?
Sure. It'll follow. I mean, it depends on if the pacing of the manga still maintains that kind
Yeah.
of like quick arcs, like 3 or 4 episode arcs, like 6 or 7 chapters maybe. Depending. Again, it's been a while since I read it, and I didn't read much. But you know, it's like it's either going to be that like it has been with your JJKs, or it will turn into JJK, and it's like, okay, we are going to live in this next arc, this one arc for the next 3 years.
Okay, so I was looking over my notes and I did want to mention a couple of things about ghosts and aliens in this show. So, the yokai in this show are interesting because, like, my understanding is that there is a yokai, and then they kind of, like, they inhabit some form of, like, an actual person's spirit, right? Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, there's some kind of, like, melding between, like, you know, a kind of monstrous form that's entirely on its own, and then it gets personified by an actual spirit, and those things are slightly separate from each other, right? Because, like, Turbo Granny in particular, like, when they destroy her the first time in the train sequence, when they destroy her, you see all these other spirits from the tunnel, like, evacuated from her, and is like, okay, she was in the tunnel, she saw all these, like, terrible murders happen, and then she used the power of those victims to make herself more powerful, is my understanding of it. So, like, there's a sense in which, like, this trauma is being harnessed by these creatures, right?
Yes and no. I think I read it more kind of on like Chainsaw Man rules. I don't know if you've so when I say Chainsaw Man rules, the way they set it up in Chainsaw Man is that like demons exist because people believe in them. So the and like the power of that thing is directly influenced by how much belief and how much fear is held socially by that thing, right? So the shark demon, like, that's going to be a pretty powerful demon because that's just a thing that people are generally afraid of, right?
Okay.
Chainsaws, the katana demon, the gun like very powerful things simply created based on people's fear of them. Like, they are given form manifest by the collective conscious deciding, oh, that's a scary concept.
Are
And
people afraid of fast grannies, though? Like,
well, so it's distinct. It's not like directly Chainsaw Man rules. Like, I'm describing Chainsaw Man rules. So in this, I feel like it's more like there are canonized demons, like Turbo Granny. I can't remember if that's like her. It's obviously not her original name, but that is like a classic Japanese folktale.
yeah.
And so it's kind of one of those things where it takes that concept from this folktale, and whether by virtue of it already existing and then becoming more powerful through people's knowledge, and specifically in Turbo Granny's case, she targets people who are bringing girls into that tunnel to assault them, ostensibly, right? Like, she has become more of like the character that she is a protector, but because of the incidents and the instances where things have gone wrong in the tunnel, there is a broad generalized fear of her which feeds into her power as a demon.
I don't remember anything about, like, the kind of, like, the broad collective having an effect on that, but I
don't think that's explicit.
I
I think that's more of just my read on it. There were a couple of very brief things that inform that, like very, very short pieces of dialogue that I feel like inform that.
That would definitely check out, just like the Chainsaw Man connection, but
Right. So I feel like it's kind of like these things exist, right? Like this world is not saying that these things exist based on people's belief in them explicitly, but I think that people's belief in them and people's fear of them feed into it.
maybe. I mean, I would need a little bit more a bit more of a clear sign that that's the case. My understanding right now is just that like these spirits just harness the trauma of any particular place or person to manifest that trauma in a specific way, right? Because like in the same way that like Okarun can take Turbo Granny's power and harness it for good, a dead spirit who is trying to like work through this trauma but is stuck can harness it for evil, right?
Right.
That's my
in the example of Silky, right?
yeah.
But even then, I think that breaks not breaks down, because I see where you're coming from. I see what you're saying. Absolutely. I think that kind of maybe cracks a little bit when you see the connection between Silky and Aerie specifically, because it's like, okay, this spirit is manifest from a deep and like unending, like just completely incomprehensible level of grief, right?
Yeah.
And so once you have that understanding, I wouldn't necessarily call acrobatic Silky evil. She definitely does bad and scary demon things that do end up hurting people, but it is not from a want to do so. It is more from just like desperately trying to find some connection with her child again.
Yeah, like I wasn't necessarily trying to make like a value judgment on all of that stuff. I was just trying to be like, this is the connection between the good guys and the bad guys, right?
I know.
As the show
I'm not
frames
saying
it
it's
in certain
well, and
ways.
it's obviously like not black and white. Like they are very explicitly putting grayscale on this every single fucking step we take.
Yeah. But you know who doesn't really get that grayscale are the aliens. I mean, they literally get the grayscale because they're gray. But they don't. They are, apart from the shrimp guy, none of them are really like treated with any level of pseudo humanity whatsoever, right?
Right.
Like,
it is very like clinical. It is very scientific.
It's even very
again,
capitalist.
not even necessarily like explicitly evil, but like it is obviously like harmful in a very direct sense to the characters that we care about, and so we do not want it to happen.
Yeah,
and
like
we also get kind of like this theory that Okarun proposes of like a war between the aliens.
Oh
and the
yeah,
demons,
yeah, yeah.
Which
I'd love to see that play out.
We'll see if that happens or not. But I pulled a tangent.
No, you're fine.
Keep going.
But like, for them, like, there's a certain masculinity codingness to them, right? Because the reason why they abduct Momo in the first place even is that they're like, well, our species can't procreate on our own because we're all male. So we need your stuff, And that's kind of like the impetus for it. So like there's a level of like, a cold clinical like, masculine, or not even masculine, but like toxically masculine sense that like I own your body if I need it, right?
Freudian.
It's definitely Freudian. And then on top of that, in the whatever, the school dream arc or whatever that's called, where like they're in this kind of like this dream area that where everything is made out of water and stuff. The shrimp guy, and the Loch Ness monster type monster, they refer to them both, at least in the dub anyway, as gig workers, right?
Yeah. They like they have been hired on for this.
Yep, and then every time one of them fucks up, they're like, we're taking
Salary
60%
deduction.
out of your pay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like there is a level to which like it's like, I don't know, maybe this is incorrect, but like I feel like capitalism is always framed in a very masculine way. You know, it's very much like, let me accrue the wealth, let me have the power. You know, it's all that sort of stuff.
You know, a very, very
There's
classic American Psycho
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah, like, you know, just like when you think about like capitalism and like, you know, power accruement and stuff like that, it definitely has a masculine sheen to it. At least in a what I want to say, in a kind of popular consciousness sort of sense, you know.
Right.
There is a level to
Wolf
which
of
it's
Wall
evolving to
Street
be a little bit more
suits.
girl bossy, but you know.
Right, which like that's what we need, pink capitalism.
But I do like this idea that like the maleness of the culture steeps into everything. You know, it steeps into the way that they think about women and their sexual autonomy and their body autonomy, as well as like the way that they structure their society around power. You know,
Right.
It's surprisingly insightful for things that are played off as jokes. You know.
Mm-hmm. Again, it is very incredibly well conceptualized. Like I don't want to say the people or the person because that is fucking reductive, and I should do better research. Yukinobu Tatsu, the author of this, has done more thinking about any of this than I think I might ever be able to. Just so incredibly well conceptualized, I think is like the best compliment that I can give this.
Which I think is kind of interesting because like I read an interview with him where he basically said like, yeah, I pitched like over 100 different manga and like they never really got past like the initial like, you know, show me the concept phase, you know. It never got to that point where he was able to like really like develop it and, you know, give it a proper pitch and then have them be like, okay, now it's approved, you know. It was always just like bounced off of the first time, and like I can feel that sort of that insecurity that would belie that in a lot of the characters, right? You know, especially Okarun and ISA. You know, they're both like deeply insecure people, and they reflect that insecurities in very different ways. But that's kind of part of what connects them is this, you know, this need to be a little bit validated. You know.
Right. The need to they're both very kind of hurt people. Not like, you know, it doesn't seem that there has been like some serious level of abuse, like we see in some cases, guts. So like not on that level, but like
both are ostracized as children.
They feel like they are outcasts. Absolutely, they have very small circles, and they both feel the need to share themselves with another person, to show another person like who they are, and to be seen and validated by someone else. And but they are both too fucking stupid to do it, and so you get the fuck.
Yeah.
And
so while Okarun has golden balls, we're getting blue balls. We're like, come on.
It's like, fuck, this dude that she knew in elementary school is here, and now they're gonna fall in love forever. Shit. Just
That's definitely not happening.
Overthinking their problems. Completely misunderstanding every possible thing they can. But at the end of the day, they both have a very deeply concerted effort on both ends to communicate with one another and to like work through those problems, because I think despite the fact that neither one of them has said anything about it to each other yet, at the very least, it is very fucking obvious what's going on.
The friends comment on it all the time. I love those two. I love Momo's two friends that are just like always in the know and always a little bit ahead of them.
There's a new boy, huh? There's a new boy
Yep.
She's got a new boy.
Something happened between them. She's really bummed out. No, it didn't. Yeah, it did.
Yeah, it did. They read her like a fucking book. And she's like, shut up.
Oh, man. I don't know. I think that's all I really have to say about the show. The show is just Oh yeah, milk blood. Shrimp guy has milk blood. That's why
Shrimp
they
guy
take
has
the
milk
aliens.
blood.
Just a stupid little thing that's so funny.
Yeah,
Anyways,
that's why they steal cows, because you know.
yeah.
Which
Anything else you want to
that's
add?
crazy. Cow mutilation. One, I didn't realize that was like the genericized term for an alien cow abduction.
Yeah.
And also, creepy nuts. I think Josh, this might be your
Creepy
first
nuts.
time being introduced to creepy nuts.
Yeah.
That opening. Oh my god, dude.
If I wasn't more self conscious about the possibility of somebody being in the car with me and that coming on, I would add that to all my playlists.
You should be less self conscious because
I know,
it's a
I know,
banger.
but I can't help it. I can't help it.
It's
Anyways.
it's out there. It's floating.
Yeah.
It's in rotation right now, dude. It's on there. The
I was wondering about this, and maybe we can do a little bit more research and talk about it another time, even on our Patreon or something. Just do, a little bit like explain this and talk about all the songs we like. But like, I've always wondered like what the cottage industry of anime opening songs is like. How all that operates.
right, like how does a band
Is it-
get approached? Do bands
Yeah.
go out of their way to try and speak to
Are there-
Shueisha or
yeah,
whoever to?
Are there bands that specifically just do this, or do they like contact like actually famous bands in Japan to do them?
Right,
I
like
don't
how
know.
long was Creepy Nuts
Yeah,
going around playing shows before somebody approached them to do XYZ anime intro? Yeah, I mean, like, it might be. I think it would be a fun topic. So yeah, I mean, maybe Patreon episode. Speaking of
Patreon.
which,
yep. This
I think we are about ready to wrap up here.
Yep.
Season 1 of DanDaDan, go watch it.
Go watch it.
Manga DanDaDan, read it. Season 2 of DanDaDan starting in June of 2025, allegedly. So
yeah.
be
So
on
we'll
the
probably
lookout
cover
for
that in June or July. Whatever works best. We'll figure
Probably
it
once
out.
it finishes airing.
Yeah, once they finish airing and they drop a release date and stuff like that. But but on our Patreon, we're finally relaunching the Patreon. It's coming back. And I think that this is going to be a better format for it because instead of, throwing movies and just like other weird shit in there, we're going to be basically just using our Patreon as a platform to talk about whatever the fuck we feel like. Which I think, if you're a fan of us and feel like paying $1 a month or more to listen to the sounds of our voices and to support us, I think you're probably just interested in our opinions on other stuff in general. So this is probably good for you. But I'm tentatively calling these filler episodes,
Well,
because they're not technically part of the canon, but but if you really want to, if you want to just dig deep into the source material that is us, that's what
come
it is.
see our non-Japanese, well, I mean, maybe Japanese, our broader world media.
Yeah.
Takes.
Yeah, we'll
if
talk.
you're tired of the Japanese cartoons,
Yeah.
the Japanese cartoons
But-
aren't fucking going anywhere. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no.
But if you want to hear us talk about other things, the Patreon's the place to do it.
Exactly. And we're going to be putting this out on the first of every other month for now. I would like to get to the point where we're doing monthly bonus episodes, but we're just going to start bi-monthly for now just to keep things simple, and on February 1st, we're going to be dropping our first one, which actually is a Japanese cartoon called
It is a
Thus
Japanese
Spoke,
cartoon.
Thus Spoke Rohan Kishibe.
So
Which
yeah, more
is-
JoJo's content.
More JoJo content.
Let's fucking go.
It's definitely going to be a looser episode because first of all it's pretty short and also it's not it's not going to be as deep into the lineage of the show as before, but
Right. I'm very rarely going to turn back around and reference Thus Spoke Rohan Kishibe
But it's-
in following episodes, but it is cool and it is fun and it is a great watch and I'm happy to cover it.
yep, I love part 4 and I love David Production's style, so we're gonna get a little bit more of that. That's exciting. But that's going to be coming out on February 1st.
I will also, just to wrap up the Patreon discussion, Patreon episodes will be released on YouTube a year to the day. We'll set up a dead man switch or something.
Yeah.
When a Patreon episode goes live 1 year later, that episode will be unpaywalled. It'll be posted on YouTube. I personally do not like paywalled content. I know there are a lot of people out there like me, and so for you, none of the content is going to be paywalled forever. The base level entry is $1. You can look at the other tiers. They include other cool little bonuses that will probably develop over time. But we've got a couple little cool ideas for some of the higher tiers if you want to. But all the content, all the extras in terms of like pure content, $1 a month.
Which is $12 a year.
Which is $12 a year.
You can't even buy a meal at Chick-fil-A for that eventually. Now.
It will be unpaywalled eventually. So, we would like to turn this into something that might be a little more financially viable for us.
Yeah.
We would like to be able to spend more time doing that, and unfortunately, we live in a capitalist hellscape. So,
aliens all around us. We would like
to make our content as ad-free and as user accessible as possible for as long as we can. And as part of that, if we want to up production values and continue producing more content at a higher quality and faster rate, we need to make it part of something that we can sustain ourselves with. So we appreciate you listening to our Patreon plug. That link will be in the comments or in the description.
Yep. It'll be in the description. So, if you're watching on YouTube, there will be a little thing up here. But
feel free to check that out if you want to. If you don't, the normal episodes will continue as scheduled for the most part, as long as we can continue to try and stick to schedule for the most part.
Speaking of that schedule, so February 3rd, we're coming back to JoJo's. We're finishing up Golden Wind. So exciting. You really put the seed in my brain because I thought I knew where things were going, and now I'm not so sure. So, but I love that. I actually love that feeling. I love not knowing exactly where things are going. But that's coming out February 3rd, day before my birthday. So if you need to steal my social security number, there's that. But on February 17th, we're doing the 2024 MAPPA adaptation of Ranma 1/2.
Yes. So this is actually going to be my first exposure to Ranma beyond like cultural awareness of it. I've heard good things. I'm excited. Yeah. It's going to be, I think we can count this kind of as a little bit of homework because I've heard it's fairly faithful and while also bringing some of the more aged stuff kind of up to speed. So Ranma 1/2 for any of those who are tired of us talking about guys punching each other. Yep.
Now we get guys and girls punching each other. So that's pretty good. But yeah, I did pick up the first volume of Ranma 1/2,
really?
And as far as I've seen, it's pretty faithful. So. But I'll let you know that. I'll probably read that volume and watch the show in tandem and let you know. But
I gotcha.
Yeah, that's what we got going on. If you want to keep up with us, you can check us out on TikTok or Blue Sky. TikTok is at How-to Otaku Pod. The Blue Sky is at howtootaku.com. And at howtootaku.com, you can also see all of our links. All of our schedule.
That's the one-stop shop. That'll take you to the Discord. Please join the Discord.
Join the Discord.
We would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on things, and who knows, maybe eventually we might add a little bonus onto the Patreon tier of notifications and access to view recordings live. That could be fun and cool.
I mean, we'll figure it out.
The Patreon is very early stages. We very much appreciate it if you'll check that out. But that will be changing and developing as time goes along. But the Discord is a great place. Once people start flowing in and sharing their thoughts on things, it will be a much more lively experience. But please stop on by. And yeah, like we said, we are limiting down our social media now to TikTok and Blue Sky mainly.
That's
DanDaDan.
kind of all we got. Yeah, that's dun 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 dun. I don't know. I'm not gonna try to actually say Japanese words because that'll get me canceled. Anyways, thanks for listening. See you guys later.
See you, Space Cowboy.